Hello there everyone, it's Carol again from the Crafty Emporium. Welcome back to my channel, and this is the next project that I'm going to be covering with you that I've created in my Let's Get Organised for 2020 series. Now this one I have created for those that maybe do swaps or random acts of kindness. Now you can use it for whatever you so wish, so you could actually use it as a story for projects that you're working on. So relevant information that you might want to keep is when you started it, the materials that you used, how much it's cost you to make, when you finished it, who you gave it to, all of that sort of stuff. Or for those specifically in America, I know that you have lots and lots of coupons, so it could be used as a coupon store as well. So let me get down to it and show you a quick flick through. Now, I haven't created this with a closure. Again, this was just for me to demonstrate, so you can use whichever closure you so wish. So if you want to add some seam binding to it, or ribbon, or a hitch post, any of those sorts of things, then you can do. But I've just held it together with one of these big glittery, I was gifted these by a friend, these glittery bulldog clips. So if I open it out, so basically here I've made a glassine bag pocket, and in there are some cards which I'll come to later on. And then it just contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of pages. All right, so I've created it so that I can do a page for a month. Now you could create each page for each group that you're on. So if you're a member of lots of groups and you get involved in lots of swaps, then excuse me, so you could do this page as Crafty Emporium design and put your swap information in there. I've added 2 pockets to each page, so every page is the same. They've got 2 pockets on each page, and I've created these cards, which again, these will be a freebie on my Facebook group, so that you can put the group name, the swap name, the requirements of the swap, who your swap partner is going to be, your partner's address, the date that you've got to post it, and then you've got some little check boxes down here to say that yes, you have posted it, yes, you have said thank you, yes, you received it, yes, you put pictures on the group, and if you make YouTube videos, there's a little box down there to say yes, I've made a YouTube video of it. Now you've obviously got the back of the card as well that you can write some more information on too if you so wish. And then for each page I've glued them together in such a way that there's a pocket here, so that if you want to add some additional information about each of the swaps that you're getting involved in, then you can put those in the pockets. And I've done that with each of these pages, so it's a really quick and simple project. Ooh, come on, open up, to make. And then at the very back, I've added a belly band at the top of the page, and then I've got a little notebook that I covered with some of the background paper that I've used and a little bit of lace, and then I will put the back of the notebook underneath the belly band, and then that will sit over there. And then if I send out any racks to anyone, then I can write their information on there, rip that piece of paper out, and then I can store it in the pockets here so that I can keep a record of who I've sent that rack to. All right, so very quick, easy and basic journal to make. Now I've used these pockets from my kit. You don't have to use pockets, you can use glassine bags or paper bags instead. So, you know, it's about you using your imagination and just thinking through exactly what you've got, what you want to use up, and what you want to use this for. So, let's get down to it, and I'll show you how we go about making it. So the first thing that I did was I have got this card stock from Hobbycraft, and it's a little bit on the thin side, so I actually have glued 2 pieces of it together to make it more firm. Now it's about the same thickness as a cereal packet, so if you want to use the front face of a cereal packet box, then you can do, and then you would need to cover it accordingly. But I've just stuck these 2 pieces of card together, left them overnight, so I know that they're nice and dry, and I put plenty of glue on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score this. I've got my little notes here, so I'm going to score this at 5 7/8, and I'm going to flip it over and do the same again on the other side, because I've stuck 2 pieces of card together, it's quite thick. So let's just test that. Make sure that it bends easily enough. Okay, and use my bone folder to just burnish that down. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this full face here, because I want to cut papers to cover both the outside and the inside, and I need to cut them all 4 the same size. So, helps if you have the ruler around the right way, Carol. So that measures 5 3/4 inches, and I want a little bit of a border of this card showing all the way around. So I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off each of the 4 sides. So if I take off 1/4 of an inch, I need to cut my paper to 5 1/2 inches wide. And let me make a note of that, because I always forget, don't I? If you've been watching my videos previously, I sit there going 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, because I can never remember what measurement I put. Right, so this is 8 1/4 inches, so I'm going to take 1/8 off for the top and 1/8 off for the bottom, so that makes it 8 inches. So I'm going to cut the pieces of paper 5 1/2 by 8 inches. So these again are printed papers, and you can use your papers from your paper pads if you want to. And but these are printed papers, so I've already trimmed off the excess that it doesn't print on. So I want my 8-inch, I want my 8-inch measurement first. I forgot myself then, of which that's already cut to that, so that's fine. And then I want it to 5 1/2 inches wide. And 5 1/2 inches wide. And the same for the inside piece as well. So 5 1/2 inches wide. Now, if I was being a good girl, which is not very often that I am, but if I was being a good girl, I would now ink up the edges of all of those papers. But for demonstration purposes only, one is not going to do that. One is just going to glue these pieces of paper in place. And I'm using my collal glue, because I'm just gluing paper to paper. Make sure I've got plenty of glue down that middle bit as well. And the nice thing about the collal glue is that I've got that little bit of time to wiggle it about a bit to get it in the right place before it totally adheres down, and then I can't move it. Now this particular one, I'm not going to sew the I'm not going to sew the pages in place. so I don't need any Tyvek. If you were going to sew them in place, what I would suggest is, if you're going to stick 2 pieces of card together like I did here, then I would place the Tyvek in between the 2 layers of card. Or you can put the Tyvek on the top of this piece here, but then you would need to make sure then that you cover it over, because Tyvek is not the prettiest of things to look at. So if I had Tyvek underneath these papers here, I would actually put a strip of paper probably, or some washi tape or something, to just make it look pretty. Okay, so that's the basis of my cover done. Now the next thing that I did then was to create the pages themselves, and I want to have a total of 6 sheets of paper. Now I wouldn't use thin paper, you know, like photocopy paper, 80 GSM type paper. I've actually printed mine on 160 GSM paper, and I've done them all the same. So all 6 sheets are the actual same paper, so that it sort of all matches and blends right the way through. You don't have to do that. You can use whatever papers you want. And I've already prepared those 2 anyway. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these back to back. And all I'm going to do is place glue across the top and across the bottom of the long edge. Now for this, I'm actually going to use my Tyvek glue. Oh, my Tyvek glue. I did that the other day. My Tombow glue. I tell you, I'm wearing in these teeth for someone else. And the reason why I'm using the Tombow glue is because it's that little bit stronger. And because it might be holding a fair bit of weight, depending what you put into your pockets, I want to make sure that it's got some good grip and that it's not going to fall apart. And so I'm just going to stick these 2 pieces of paper back to back, so that I'm forming my pockets on each end. I'm going to set that aside to just dry off a little before I do anything with it. Now the pages themselves, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to lightly score them so that I've got the positioning for my pockets. And I'm going to score these at 1/2 inch, and I'm not scoring hard, I'm just scoring lightly so that I can get a rough idea of the position of where my pockets are going to sit. You can draw a pencil line on there if you wish, because I want to make sure that all my pockets are all lined up and not, you know, all staggered as we're going through the journal itself. So 1/2 inch and 3.5 inches. Now that's for the pockets that I'm using. If you cut out your pockets ready and then just position them where you would like them to go, and then you can work out your measurements of where you would like all your pockets to go. Now you may or may not see that. I can't see it in the camera, but there's a line there so that I can see where I need to attach my pockets. So I would do that on all of my pages. So I've folded and burnished all my pages, so they're now all ready to go inside of my cover. The next thing I need to think about is what I'm actually going to use, or what method I'm going to use to attach my pages to the cover, and I have several options. one is that I sit all of those nicely in there, and then I can poke my holes and stitch them all in place. But I want something that's really quick and easy. So I can staple all of those together. Now, it's not quite so easy with the normal stapler. It can be done, but it's not quite so easy. But I happen to have a long arm stapler, and so I could just staple, make sure I've got it in the right place. I could just staple them all together. So I would do middle, bottom and top. And so I've now got 3 staples holding that in place. You don't have to do this bit. You can leave it without the staples in. And you could use some twine, and you could just wrap the twine round a couple of times, and that would just hold the pages in place. In fact, what I would do is wrap it round a couple of times, and then I would knot it at the top up here, because you could then add some charms onto the loose threads, and they can act as a little bit of a bookmark for each of the pages. So if you were splitting these into months, then you could use that as your bookmarks throughout your pages. So you could, as I say, you could just use some twine binding, because the other option, and I've used these before in a different journal, I've got these big elastic bands, and so I could just sit the elastic band over the centre there, just straightening it up. So you could use an elastic band to hold your pages in place, but again, you've got that manoeuvrability of the pages. You could just use a piece of elastic and do that. So I'm going to leave mine as stapled and put the elastic on. But the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of my micropore over the top of these staple edges here where they folded in, because they're just a little bit sharp and they can easily catch on your fingers. So I would actually put a little piece of micropore over the top of those just to protect your fingers a little bit. But I'm just going to use this piece of elastic to hold it in place, and then that would be my journal then completed in terms of how you go about making it. Now we're up to decorating it.